Namaskaram and a very good evening, all of you. Could you please confirm if we are live? Hello everyone. Hi Prachi, Basita, Prabhat, Kamlaksh, Pranjal, Muskan, Aniket, Aditya, Ankit, Harsh, Himon, Vishesh, Himanshu, Siddharth. Hello, क्या हाल चाल है? जल्दी से बताओ, are we live? Yes, we are. Okay, cool. क्या हाल चाल है तुम लोगों के? Good evening everyone. Alright, so I hope you're pretty excited about today's session. I am, because today I have a wonderful student with me from 2021. And although the weather sucks right now, I am living my happy life because I am receiving a lot of good news from all the toppers that I worked hard with last year. So here we are with our first interview for the final convert for the season. So we have done a couple of interviews with 99 percentilers. Today here we are with wonderful 98 point something percentiler, Vibha Kapoor, who's converted SPJIMR Institute of Management and Research, Mumbai. And you will know her for converting SPJIMR. I will know her as the student who wrote the bombest letters to me. So good evening, Vibha. I hope you're doing well. How are you?
I'm good, ma'am. Thank you so much for that great introduction. How are you?
I'm fine, and I hope that your insights today will help the students out there to understand cracking CAT and converting an esteemed college like SPJN better. Also, I would like to tell my students out there who are watching me right now that SPJN is an esteemed B school, and it was at rank 39 in the Financial Times Masters in Management global list of B schools. The only other two Indian B schools that made it to that list were I am Ahmedabad and Bangalore. So the three B schools that made it, the three Indian B schools that made it to the global list, SPJN was one of them. So you can imagine what a beautiful opportunity this is going to be for our girl to go there, and I'm sure she'll have a blast. Vibha, I would like to start this conversation by you telling the students how did it strike you, or what provoked you or stimulated you to choose an MBA or to try and crack CAT, or to just when did you make up your mind that अच्छा मेरे को भी CAT देने का है और I want to do an MBA, and was there a reason for it?
So, ma'am, as a 12th grader, I was very confused. I had PCM plus economics. So, I wasn't a commerce background student initially. But what I was always clear about is wanting an MBA. Part of it comes from looking at my dad in similar positions. So, I've always sort of enjoyed looking at him work. I've always wanted it. The idea of being able to manage people, being able to create products that have that life always excited me. So, I was always into it. I always wanted to do an MBA. When I stepped into college, I looked at the kind of streams that we had. I was even more interested. But after a few advices, I started my prep in January of the same year. So Jan 2021 is when I decided to formally go for it. I said, let's prep for these 11 months and we're going to see.
Alright, so I would say that Vibha was still an early bird because January is pretty much a good time to start. I know we still have students who are joining us right now, but like I always say, the earlier you start, the better, because then your workload on a daily level comes down. Yeah. So okay. So you started in January, and once you started, did you join Unacademy, or were you preparing on your own? What were you doing?
So with regards to starting in January, there were a couple of opinions that happened. So some people told me that starting in my third semester, which is closer to August or September, would be better. Similarly, some people believe that March or April is a better time. In my opinion, that time entirely depends on how much time you can invest as a person. For example, for someone who would get bored in date class, that gap would get a lot. They would maybe reach a peak performance early, and that doesn't help. So in January, I sort of joined like a conventional coaching institute. Okay. They were supposed to go offline, but then we had COVID. By the time August, September, when I covered my basics, I was still unsure about how things were happening. So I was scoring in mocks, but I never felt satisfied with what I was doing, which was a major concern for me. I didn't want to repeat what I'd done in entrances before. So then I sort of came across Unacademy through one of their free mocks. And beyond that, when they do their analysis, that's when I started looking up teachers. I started seeing how educators function. And then I took like a 4-month subscription at the end. And then I watched all of the recordings for the entire term.
But you were like, as far as I know, you were binge watching the recordings, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I watched all courses from all time to make sure that I had no FOMO with respect to that.
So because I remember you writing this in one of the letters that you were binge watching the classes. All right, okay. So I am sure the students who were binge watching the classes, you now have a partner. Okay, Vibha, people are saying that your audio is not clear. Maybe you could be a little louder.
Sure.
Okay, and also
Better now?
those of you complaining about full screen, dude, this is full screen. Actually, what has happened is that on the right side, you usually see me in the interview, like in the eclectic reading sessions. And right now, I've removed it, so it shows up like this. But I think you can manage. We look equally beautiful in smaller videos also, isn't it? तो मुद्दे की बात पर ध्यान दो तुम स्कूल में.
I'm done.
Okay, I would want you to tell us about your prep journey. What was your weakest section and your strongest section out of the three?
So ma'am, because it's my background, I come from a family where math is loved. So I was always comfortable with quant. Similarly, English as a language has been very present in my family. And I've also had great English teachers along the way. So I was also comfortable with VART.
Okay.
LRDI was a little scary for me because it wasn't something that I'd experienced before.
So you were good at
over
maths.
time,
you were good at maths. You were good at maths, decent at English, and poor at LRDI. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. But I think when I gave my first few mocks, I attended a few classes. I figured that none of the sections are easy for anyone. So you have to start from scratch everywhere, then figure out again what you're comfortable with. Because the math is very different from how we conventionally do math.
Absolutely.
The comprehension that you need for English is very different from how we operate in school. Nothing's direct, everything's logical. So in that sense, I feel like you need to work from scratch no matter what your comfort areas are, and then you sort of need to reconfigure that.
All right, cool. And did you refer to any books for all these three sections, or like in general for CAT?
I was advised a couple of books, but my understanding is you can't pick up one book and make sure that it makes you reach your goal. What helped me the most was educator material on Unacademy.
Okay.
So for me, all of the material that, for example, you had, what my quant educator had, solving just that is also more than enough. So it's more than you will find in any book, any sheet. It's also dynamic because it gets discussed. So more than the static material in books or any other sheets that you find, I feel like A, faster, and B, your educator material. Both of these are enough for the material that people look for.
Okay, so I think a lot of people, you guys keep asking about books. So she says that अगर आप books ले रहे हैं अपने तरफ से तो लीजिए, लेकिन कोई ऐसे एक किताब नहीं है कि आप ले लीजिएगा और वो पूरा CAT का encyclopedia हो जाएगा. So Vibha has heavily relied on the educator material which is shared in the classes, and I'm sure through the groups also that most educators have. And she also says that she found it useful because ultimately that material is getting discussed. अगर discuss ही नहीं होगा तो questions का कोई फायदा नहीं है, because then you are anyway not being able to solve them. All right, which brings me to my question that who all were you following on Unacademy?
Sure, ma'am. For VART, I was religiously following you for all courses, including OMAT courses, which I feel like is something exclusive that you bring to the table and is something that everyone should follow. So did you study for your OMAT while you study for CAT.
So did you do the NMAT, ZAT and IFT courses as well?
Yes. I've done all of your courses for all the exams that I gave. So I gave that, IIFT and NMAT outside of CAT. All of those courses are done with you. And also it helps just to be able to have that resource early. For example, if you have NMAT material early, at least you've done say 80% of your prep before the actual exam day.
Absolutely.
Or before that week. So in that sense, I was religiously following all of your recordings once I stepped in August, September. For quant, I was with Lokesh Agarwal sir.
Okay.
Similarly for DILR, I reached a stage by August where I was only practicing.
Okay.
So concepts per se I didn't do on Unacademy, but if I had to resort to certain revision, I was going to him. Outside of that, one thing that I did specifically was GK with Ravi Prakash sir.
Okay.
That I feel like was a game changer in IIFT GK or that GK where you have the section.
Okay, so she was following Lokesh Agarwal sir for QADILR, apart from help from her institute, Ravi Prakash sir for GK, and she did BRC with me. Alright, and I would want you to tell these students about, this is the most common question that I get asked, and I think I've grown too old to be able to help students design their schedule. Also on an online level, it's difficult because every student is different. But you are a college-going student, so did your schedule change like month by month? How were you planning your day? How did you strategize your prep? Could you give them some tips?
Of course. So I can only, I'll discuss my schedule, but my idea is this has to be personal for everyone. And no matter who you listen to, you'll have to figure out a strategy for myself. For me, what I did was, because I started early, then I could start with not devoting as much time. So I was only maybe giving 2-3 hours to CAT at that point of time for the first few months up until April at least. 2-3 hours at that point of time were enough because you don't get that much material in a conventional coaching institute. Also, you'll maybe get 2 sheets a day, which is manageable then. Starting May to July, I was putting about 5 or 6 hours. This included mocks at times, sectionals, detailed questions. So all of that took up more time. And when August I started, like I joined Unacademy in August or September, I had to put in about 7-8 hours to start with. And then to make sure I covered my classes, I could revise, I could also give mocks. I did about 10 to 12 hours for the last year. And this I feel is a necessity change also, because otherwise your intensity of prep will get crowded out in a space that you don't want it. So as you gradually reach towards the exam, it's important to sort of increase those hours to stay active.
Okay, so I think this is absolutely loud and clear to everybody that she started with a couple of hours a day, but it became as high as 10 to 12 hours during the months nearing the exam. I also would like to add here that when you listen to such answers, you should keep the overall perspective in mind, which means you should understand that she is joining Unacademy in August. Which means if you have been, with us for a longer time, you might not need 10 to 12 hours, you might be able to do it with 6 to 8 hours because आपने recordings का उतना backlog नहीं इकट्ठा करा है जितना इसके पास इकट्ठा था. तो ये नुआंसेस ध्यान में रख के फिर ये बात अपने पास रखना, ये नहीं कि अरे 12 घंटा पढ़ना पड़ेगा, तुम्हारा बैकलॉग नहीं है तो तुम उसका 2-3 घंटा काट लो. तो जो भी आंसर सुन रहे हो उसको वाइजली इंटरप्रेट करके अपने जीवन में उतारना है, और रट्टाफिकेशन काम नहीं करेगा. ठीक है, और मॉक्स के बारे में मुझे बताओ, तुमने कौन से मॉक्स लिए, कहाँ से लिए, कितने मॉक्स दिए थे, फुल लेंथ सेक्शनल्स देती थी क्या, कब से स्टार्ट किया था, व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू टॉक अबाउट रिलेटेड टू मॉक्स.
Ma'am, just in addition to what I said before with regards to schedule, the way that I cut out my 12 hours on days that I need it also is to take, say, 3-4 hour pockets. In that sense, you can just choose the number of pockets that you need in a day, and this is relevant no matter what stage of prep you're at. So even if you're at 5-6 hours, you will have 2 pockets and choose them. Similarly, when you're at, say, a 12-hour stage, you can choose similarly. And like you said, because I had the recordings, I had a lot to do. But anyone can, if they're following since the beginning, for example, if I had your classes since the beginning, I maybe need 5 or 6 hours even towards the end. So that works out that way. With regards to mocks, what I'd done was I gave the Unacademy mocks when I joined. So I tried to give whatever was left out there. Then I had mocks from Time and Career also.
Okay.
So these 3 I did. Overall, I think I reached about 45 to 50 full length mocks. But this also happened because I started as early as February.
So you took around 45 to 50 full length mocks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my idea was, because I'd sort of taken JEE coaching before, and that hadn't panned out well for me, I chose to go with a different stream. My idea was I first need to get over with the fear of these exams in the first. And this is what exists for a lot of people who haven't given entrances before, who've given entrances but not had a good time. So for me, say between February, March and April, that is my main agenda, that I need to get used to this and I need to make sure that when I give the exam, I'm not scared of the fact that someone's testing. So in that sense, I started early in Feb.
Okay.
And then I was maybe giving 2-3 mocks a month until April. And then May onwards, it started increasing then that.
All right. So you increased the frequency May onwards.
Yes.
Okay, so May onwards, the frequency increased. All right, I'm just trying to write some pointers for them. Okay, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you should tell us your CAT percentile also, section-wise also.
Sure. My CAT overall percentile was a 98.68. VARC percentile is 92. DILR 98.18 and quant 98.09.
DILR was 98 point something and QA was?
98.09.
All right. So this is what the results look like. Those of you are asking, academics, yeah. People are asking you what was your strategy regarding LRDI, especially because it's your weak area.
Sure. So I think firstly, like I said, through mocks and sectionals, I've gotten used to the section. That when you start and you don't really have that much grasp of a particular section, it's fine for you to not be able to attempt as much as you like. For example, a lot of people go in thinking this, that I have to attempt 3 sets out of 5. And there will be a point of time when you give a mock and you don't know any set. Or you know one set, and that's going to happen. Like for me, even when I started with mocks, and there's some level of complacency that kicks in. My first mock, I was at 99 point something. By my fourth or fifth mock, I dropped to maybe an 87, 88. So in that sense, I feel like with DILR, what I did was first get used to the section, that this is something that's going to happen and it's something that you can work with. Beyond that, there are only some concepts in DILR that you can do. So those basics I cover, that if there's a 4-set Venn diagram, this is what you do. If there are cubes, this is what you do. Those basic guidelines I knew, and then I only relied on facts. So 2 to 4 sets daily for the beginning, and then say 5, 6, 7, 8 as you keep going. So you cover the maximum number of sets that you can. And while most people feel that revising sets doesn't help, I feel like if there's a particular kind that you don't like, it's important to go back and look at how you solved it. Absolutely. And how you made yourself like it then.
I agree with this, and I would strongly recommend this. LRDI को लेके बहुत question आते हैं क्योंकि LRDI थोड़ा different section है, और like you see that she scored 98 in DILR despite this being her weak section, so which means that she must have put in a lot of effort in solving those sets. So a few takeaways for DILR for all of you are that you will have to do a lot of sets. You can start with 2 sets a day maybe and go up to as many as 8 sets a day. There will be a point number 2, but there will be a time where sometimes you're scoring 99 in DILR in the mock, and sometimes you're scoring maybe 80s or 70s or whatever. It is absolutely okay and natural. Sometimes there will be times when you're not able to do even a single set out of the 5 or 4 sets which are given to you, which is also okay. You really need to keep going. Another thing that she adds here is revision बहुत ज़रूरी है. ये नहीं कि कोई set नहीं हुआ है, आपको पसंद नहीं है तो छोड़े. In fact, she says अगर कोई क्यूब्स या वेन डायग्राम्स या कोई भी एक ऐसा कॉन्सेप्ट जिसमें आप इरिटेट होते हैं, जो आपको पसंद नहीं है, उस पर आपको बार बार जाके उसको स्ट्रेंथन करना चाहिए. ये बात हमने सेजल के इंटरव्यू में भी डिस्कस की थी, वेयर सेजल सेड दैट LRDI इज समथिंग बेस्ड ऑन अ प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग माइंडसेट. जब तक आप अपना प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग स्किल खुद से अकेले बैठ के कमरे में क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करके दिमाग लगा के उसको पॉलिश नहीं करेंगे, LRDI इम्प्रूव नहीं होगा. इट इज़ नॉट समथिंग दैट यू कैन जस्ट कीप वॉचिंग 100 classes a month and it will improve. It's something that you really need to spend time on alone, all by yourself. Yes, I think I've covered everything here. Okay, and another very common question which I keep answering all the time, but I want you to answer today is, what did you do about your social media, your distractions? Unacademy का सबसे बड़ा क्वेश्चन, सबसे पॉपुलर क्वेश्चन का अवार्ड जाता है, मैम लाइफ में बहुत डिस्ट्रैक्शन है, हम फोकस नहीं कर पाते हैं, हम रील्स देखते हैं, अभी टिकटॉक बैन हो गया है तो रील्स आ गया है लाइफ में. Did you have any such issues?
So ma'am, I had fortunately all of my social media on and I was able to balance it. But from what I've learned from discussion, you will have to be honest with yourself about your self-control. For example, जैसे मैंने Unacademy binge किया, I was aware that if I start a show on Netflix, I will not be able to stop myself. So in that sense, I made sure that I don't start a series on Netflix, and I haven't started one since May of last year. Okay, so I'm still struggling to get it into that mood.
Please note that she knew that she was binge watching Unacademy classes, but she was not binge watching Netflix because she knew that once she starts, there is no stopping her. And I have heard this from other people also. Like I have heard this from other students also, जिनका खुद पर कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है, तो उन्होंने कोई सीरीज नहीं स्टार्ट की. एंड विभा राइट हियर सेज कि पिछले मई से कुछ नहीं देखा है सीरीज के मामले में. तो शी हैड अ सोशल मीडिया ऑन, बट शी रिलाइड ऑन 2 things: बैलेंस, सो यू नो कितना टाइम किसको देना है, एंड यू हैव टू बी ऑनेस्ट विद योर सेल्फ कि मैं एक्चुअली कितना टाइम स्पेंड कर रही हूँ खुद को ठीक रखने के लिए, ब्रेक लेने के लिए, और मैं कितना टाइम वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ. गो अहेड, प्लीज कंटिन्यू.
Ma'am, the other thing that I feel like really helps in this sense also is to make sure that you build an accountability system. For example, for me, because CAT had become a part of my life, it isn't just prep, it's something that you want for your life. My family knew about it, my close circle knew about it. So I tell them to often check in that, oh Vibha, what have you done this week? Are you watching something? What have you done to make sure that you're less tired? Have you taken a walk? What is your score?
But doesn't that pressurize you? यहाँ तो लोग बड़े दुखी होते हैं कि अरे हमसे पूछा जाता है, हम प्रेशर में आ जाते हैं.
Ma'am, it pressurizes if you don't ask someone to ask you. I feel like that's the deal. Before someone comes into your life, you should invite them. कि आज हम पूछ लो क्या हो जाए.
I like that. I really like that. So इससे पहले कि लोग आपको उंगली करें, आप लोगों को न्योता दीजिए कि देखो मुझे उंगली करो, मैं तैयारी कर रहा हूँ, तो आप उंगली करेंगे तो मैं पढ़ूंगा. तो जब वो उंगली करेंगे तो आपके पास कोई एस्केप नहीं होगा, आपको बुरा नहीं लगेगा, क्योंकि आप कहेंगे कि अरे मैंने ही तो इस व्यक्ति को बोला था कि पूछे. So I love this. I'm going to use this in the coming sessions also. So please ask everybody in your life to make sure that they are checking up on you कि तुम पढ़ रहे हो या नहीं पढ़ रहे हो, मेहनत चल रही है कि नहीं चल रही है. Beautiful. और बताओ.
Ma'am, the other idea is also that when everyone in your life knows, it also brings in some understanding of where you are.
Responsibility.
For example, for my parents, they're more aware of how unpredictable this entire journey is than say some of the other people in their age group are, or even some of my friends' circle is. So if you keep talking to people in your life who are close to you, irrespective of whether or not they've done the exact same thing, it really helps you to build that support system. And of course, I'm very grateful to have the system that I had with respect to my friends. But I feel like with educators like you, Telegram groups where we've been able to talk and wish tests even when we have doubts, all of this really helps. So it's important to build that system that keeps you accountable. And if you don't like social media, if you like scrolling reels, please uninstall Instagram. There's no other way to get away from it than to just discard it.
And no, I say this all the time because I am a person who like watches one episode a day and it shocks people. You watch one episode a day, dude. I mean, who's stopping you? No more a student, but that's how I function. That's the amount of willpower and discipline I have in my life. That I will switch everything off by 11 o'clock. My classes get over by 9:30, and I only in the entire day I have only 1 hour of watching for me. So if you're not as disciplined as I am, then you will have to eventually give up on your subscriptions and your accounts, whatever in Snapchat, etc. you're using. So it's your way or the highway. Okay, you'll have to choose कि मैं हूँ डिसिप्लिन, मैं रोज आधा घंटा इंस्टा चला के या स्नैपचैट जो भी आप करते हैं नेटफ्लिक्स चला के खुद को मेंटेन रख सकता हूँ और अपने पाथ से हटूंगा नहीं. अगर आपके अंदर इतना विल पावर नहीं है तो आपको एक्सट्रीम डिसीजन लेकर you will have to go off of it. Now that April has begun, I think it's high time. You can take a 6-month break or maybe a 3-month break later on, depends on how serious you are and how much is your screen time, how much time do you spend on your phone and your screen. Cool, good enough. I think this was very important. There is a common concept that goes around in the market where people say कि LRDI के बारे में हमने बात करी. Tell us something about QA, and I also want you to tell us something about VRC because VRC के लिए मार्केट में ये बात बहुत मशहूर है कि अरे नॉवल पढ़ लो तो VRC क्रैक हो जाता है. तो मैं बोलूँगी तो असर नहीं होगा बिकॉज मैं तो फिर माल बेचने वाली बात हो जाती है. मैं चाहती हूँ तुम स्टूडेंट्स को बताओ तुम्हारा QA और VRC को लेके क्या स्ट्रैटेजी और एक्सपीरियंस था.
ठीक है, start with QA and then go to VRC क्योंकि आप बैठे हो, आप थोड़ी डिटेल ऐड कर दो. For QA, what I've done is एक तो these concepts are everything that you get thorough with even if you study till grade 10. More stuff is stuff that you've seen before, but the idea is it's very important to follow whichever educator you do to figure out what exact path you need to take to solve it in a shorter amount of time.
So would you suggest, like very honestly and very bluntly, if students are asking, you forget that I am asking you, would you suggest that you should go to like multiple educators for maybe some part of VA, some part of RC, grammar किसी से कर ला, vocab किसी से कर ला? Do you think it would have worked for you? Or did you try it?
I didn't try it, but I also genuinely feel like it creates more confusion for you. It's not really about what your age. Obviously, I feel like it's a little disrespectful to the educator also. Because they put in a lot to make sure that your journey gets to a successful end. But the second idea is also just bad selfishly. Why would you want to get confused with two different methods of teaching, two different ways to approach the same problem? My only idea is, and especially given all of you stay so accessible, we can reach out to you on Telegram, reach out to you on groups, on mail, etc. If we don't understand a certain thing, all we have to do is say it on the group. And you'll find an alternative video, you'll find a lesson, you will find something or the other that helps. So in that regard, I feel like you should stick with one educator, but be very honest about what you don't understand. Because the second you start feeling like, oh, I should have understood this, or oh, this is something that should come naturally to me, 99 people get it, I don't. All of that plays against you. You need to be really honest with yourself and also the educator that you stick to.
Okay, so she's saying that you should stick to one educator and because otherwise it gets confusing, and whoever you are with, if you have doubts, you should put up, brave front and ask your doubts. Even if the other people have understood it and you've not understood it, you should reach out to your educators in the class, in the doubt sessions, or maybe on Telegram, and make sure that आप इस गलत फहमी में नहीं रहे कि अरे मुझे आना चाहिए था और अभी नहीं आ रहा है तो कोई बात नहीं, अगर आपको नहीं आ रहा है तो आपको वो क्लैरिफाई करना चाहिए. And I also think that everybody is a human being. If you're a regular student with an educator, the educator also makes sure कि ये रेगुलर बच्चा है तो मेरा फ़र्ज़ है कि मैं इसको ध्यान दूँ क्योंकि ये पढ़ रहा है. वो सेंस ऑफ ड्यूटी तो है ही सब में. ओके. एंड QA के लिए तुम क्या एडवाइस दोगी?
For QA, I recommend everyone sort of needs to try out a few strategies for QA because you need to go through all questions. Anything that you skip is an opportunity loss. तो वो आप 10 मिनट में 4 क्वेश्चन कर रहे हो या फिर आप 20 मिनट के स्लॉट्स ले रहे हो. All of these are strategies that you'll have to try out. But B also, you can't keep strong section, weak section because there's a lot of chances that whatever your strong section is does not give you that opportunity to score. जैसे for me, geometry has sucked all throughout my life. मुझसे कभी geometry नहीं हुई. But the 2 questions I solved in my CAT final slot was still geometry.
हाँ, ये मैंने I heard this in the analysis also कि बहुत सारे लोगों का ज्योमेट्री वीक था लेकिन एग्जाम में वो ज्योमेट्री करके और अरिथमेटिक टफ आ गया. दिस हैपेंस इन VRC ऑल्सो. आपका RC स्ट्रॉन्ग है लेकिन एग्जाम में RC टफ आ गया तो आप अल्टीमेटली पैराजम्बल पे रिलाय आपको करना पड़ेगा. अगर आप पैराजम्बल छोड़ के गए हो क्योंकि मेरा तो RC स्ट्रॉन्ग है और अगर RC अनडू मतलब एकदम कुछ ऐसा आ गया जो बहुत टाइम टेकिंग है तो यू विल लूज इट बोथ वेज क्योंकि यू डोंट हैव एन ऑप्शन टू फॉल बैक ऑन. सो आई थिंक यू शुड नॉट लीव एनी क्वेश्चंस. Especially in QA, VA, RC, where you have topics, you have chapters, so you should finish all of them and you should make sure that you are doing all of them क्योंकि आपको नहीं पता कि आपके स्ट्रॉन्ग एरिया से क्वेश्चन ईजी आएगा या टफ और आपके वीक एरिया से क्वेश्चन ईजी आएगा या टफ. वहाँ जो क्वेश्चन आया उसको उठाना है और कर लेना है. गुड, कूल इनफ. SPJIMR के बारे में बताओ कि तुम्हारा एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था. आई थिंक वहाँ ग्रुप इंटरव्यू होता है और फॉर्म फिलिंग होता है. आई थिंक SOP का भी फंडा है. तो would you like to tell us something about all of that?
ठीक है. I'll just quickly finish on how I did VARC and then I'll move on to this. एक तो obviously I've talked to all of your classes, but also the second thing that everyone should know is that they should listen to everything that you say. In class, outside of class, and I feel like this is really important because the kind of tips that I've received from you with regards to interviews also, all of these are things that help you no matter what institute you're filling out from.
Okay, so you did those interview classes, the special classes you mean?
Yeah. Special classes are done and that's what I was getting to in my SOP also. You had mentioned in one of the classes that we should make a list of everything that's happened in life.
Yeah.
जैसे बचपन से अभी तक we need to make a list of all experiences that you had chronologically.
Yeah.
When you have, say if you fill out even 10 forms, you will still have to do close to at least 10-15 SOPs. In that sense, when you have that, all you have to do is pick.
Exactly.
And that you don't get the luxury to do if you don't listen to the educator that you're following. So for VRC, for life, for all other things that you follow in educators, especially because I've had the experience with you, I feel like it's really important to listen there. जैसे आपने novels की भी बात की. For me, and despite a lot of educators recommending novels, for me it wasn't something that worked.
Okay.
मुझे लग ही नहीं रहा था कि उसको पढ़ने से कुछ हो रहा है. So for me, I resorted to articles. I resorted to newspapers. I was doing that. Outside of that, VA, RC, both were more or less a logical game for me. मुझे कभी भी ये नहीं लगता था कि RC पढ़ के there's been a win. RC पढ़ के if you can deduce the logic in the question and get the correct answer, that's the win. So in that sense, I feel like it's really important to be able to listen to your educator and convey you. And if you don't get it, it's really important to get that clarification also. बाकी SPJIMR में, like you said, consists of a couple of rounds. Sorry. When we started, we had an application form before CAT.
Okay.
इसमें क्या होता है? Because SPJIMR has an early specialization picking. You have to pick your specialization before you're shortlisted, interviewed, etc. You have to pick out exactly why you're doing the specialization, and this is where profile becomes important. The two kind of calls that they give are profile based and profile comes based, which means that your profile will be considered either. So for me, I picked marketing as the specialization that I applied for. मेरे लिए that profile building consisted mostly of what I've done in college. And if anyone's starting new, my recommendation would be get your profile done in the first couple of years of college. Or if you're an engineer, maybe in the first year before your actual prep. Because then you have the leeway to sort of give up.
Yeah.
But even if not, it's important that your profile building runs for as long as you can without disturbing your them.
So what all did you
अब
do
जैसे
for improving your profile?
मैम मेरे लिए तो thankfully because I'm in Hansraj, my college comes with a lot of society. So for us, it's almost second nature. The day that you step in, you have to interview for societies, you have to stay there. So for me, I had a couple of societies with regards to communication. Like I had debating, I had student consulting. So all of that helped. I also did internship. One of my internships was product development, so that helped. Event management really helps because you get into marketing departments, you get into marketing actual events. So in that sense, that was what my profile consisted of for marketing. But I feel like this is the thing. Eventually, you will build an overall profile.
Yeah.
Even if you fill out general MBAs, it's really important that your profile stands out because they will be questioning you on it. So for SPJIMR,
sorry for the interruption, but I would like to add here that SPJIMR is supremely known for giving profile based. It's very clear on their website. If you go to their website after the session, check वहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है प्रोफाइल बेस्ड कॉल्स आते हैं और प्रोफाइल एंड स्कोर बेस्ड कॉल्स आते हैं. तो जैसे विभा को प्रोफाइल बेस्ड कॉल आया तो प्रोफाइल के लिए देखो, अब वो शी डज नॉट हैव वर्क एक्सपीरियंस बट बिकॉज शी इज फ्रॉम हंसराज शी इज मेड श्योर दैट she's done all the society work, participated in various competitions, done debates, internships. You've heard everything from her. ये करके आप बेसिकली ये दिखाते हो दैट यूर पैशनेट अबाउट व्हाट यू आर डूइंग एंड दिस इज व्हाट इम्प्रेसेस द कॉलेज पीपल कि ये बच्चा हमारे पास आएगा तो हमारे लिए एसेट होगा और ये काम करने के लिए रेडी रहेगा. सो अगेन लाइक आई ऑलवेज यू सपोज टू टेल द कॉलेजेस दैट डूड आई डिजर्व टू बी ऑन अ सीट इन योर कॉलेज. तो ये काम आपको करना चाहिए. अगर आप अभी भी कॉलेज में हैं, आपका लास्ट सेमेस्टर बचा है या आपका 1 साल बचा है, तो आपको मेक श्योर करना चाहिए कि आप अपने कॉलेज में एक्टिवली पार्टिसिपेट करो. सिर्फ घर बैठ के अगर आप सिर्फ पढ़ाई करोगे तो कहीं ना कहीं यू गोइंग टू lose on these fronts. Also, the experience and the fun part of college life goes away then. Cool.
And also, ma'am, this profile edition, like I've heard a lot of people say that you need big names on your CV or you need corporate internships. I feel like whatever experience you get, it can contribute positively if you know what positive thing you gained out of it.
हाँ, अगर आप काम सीख रहे हो तो नाम नहीं मायने रखता है बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली वो फॉर्म भरवाते हैं और इंटरव्यू होता है. और अगर आपके फॉर्म के मटेरियल में और आपके इंटरव्यू की बातों में सामने वाले को दिख जाता है कि तुमने काम किया है, तुम्हें काम आता है, तुम एक्टिवली पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं एंड यू नो थिंग्स, द बैटल इज हाफ वन देयर एंड नोबडी केयर्स कि आप कौन से ब्रांड के साथ काम कर रहे थे. वो करने के लिए तो फिर आप स्कूल जा ही रहे हैं. They don't expect you to already come from Ernst and Young. They'll send you to Ernst and Young, but then you have to at least show them that you are earnest and young. So you have to make sure that you're proving yourself and participating in all that you can and making the most of the opportunities that you get. Cool. All right. So so that's the form filling part and the SOP part. So for the SOP, she's taken the tip that I gave in the free classes of personal interviews कि अपने लाइफ का एक ऑटोबायोग्राफी लिख के रखो क्रोनोलॉजिकल ऑर्डर में और उससे SOPs फिल करने में आपको बहुत हेल्प मिलेगी, फॉर्म फिलिंग में बहुत हेल्प मिलेगी and it will also help you in your interview preparation. And these are the various things. What else about the remaining rounds, Vibha?
So ma'am, this autobiography that we build, I feel like if you start doing it early, even while you're prepping, then you can see lapse in the time that you still have to pick. So I feel like if whoever's prepping, for example, right now, if you start in March, you still have a couple of months before it looks made up.
Yeah.
कि last में आना था तो वैसे internship हो गया. So all of that really shows on the forms. In that sense, it's really helpful. What I had after this was my actual interview process post shortlisting. So उसमें like we had 2-3 things. A, we had the written assessment, which only existed in a few institutes, but for this one I had to give it. But all of these were very relevant topics. Just say mine specifically was brain drain. Someone else
this happened online itself?
Learning. Yes, it was online. So there were 20 people on a common Zoom call.
Achha.
And then we were supposed to do this written assessment with our videos, mics, everything on the portal itself.
Okay. So you have to type it?
So on the portal you get, yes. It's all
What
typed.
is the topic?
It's on the portal. My topic was brain drain. Something, say the exact state. Brain drain.
Okay.
So exact topic was something like, oh, India's seen a lot of brain drain. What do you think are the reasons for it? Similarly, a lot of the other experiences that I read, everything was very relatable. Someone was, what are your learnings from the pandemic? Someone else had, oh, do you prefer working in a team or do you prefer working individually? So all of these were relatable topics. The idea that I got was what you always teach us, that A, it's important to be structured, but B, it's also important to bring in a unique perspective.
Absolutely.
In that sense, classes really help, wherein you know that you have to start, you have to find like a good beginning, quote, statement, something. You have to build in, say, a 3-paragraph essay, and then you have to give in a conclusion. So in that regard, I follow that for my written assessment. And then we had a set of 2 group interviews.
Okay.
So the first one in this process is a majorly technical round.
Okay.
For me as a fresher, I was questioned on my subject material, which was economics. But for people with work ex who were with me, they were majorly questioned on their work ex, unless they only had 6 to 8 months of experience.
Which brings me to the tip that I always give, that if you're a fresher, then you will get questions asked from your graduation का subjects, तो पढ़ लो. एंड इफ यू आर ऑलरेडी वर्किंग तो ग्रेजुएशन तो पूछेंगे ही. उससे ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप ऑफिस में जो काम करते हैं उसमें आपको कितना आता है. तो अगर आप कामचोर टाइप के व्यक्ति है तो थोड़ा सा सीरियस हो जाइए. ठीक है, हाँ जी, कंटिन्यू.
So for me, like, we had 3 panelists and 3 candidates in that interview. 2 of them had only asked me economics. There was nothing else. No HR, no events, nothing on profile. It's only economics, and similarly for the other 2 people. It's mostly like a technical background check.
Okay.
That, are you fit for what you're applying? So some questions on specialization, whatever you face, and mostly your academic or work ex material. This is really important for everyone. Other than this, what's exclusive to group interviews is that you have to stay attentive throughout the interview, no matter when your turn comes. For example, mine in this interview was always last.
Achha.
But there were times when I know that, for example, one of my co-candidates was asked a question on math. He wasn't able to answer, but I was very sure of the answer. So I waited for everyone's turn to finish, and then when they left scope for us to sort of add anything to what he said, I mentioned that, this is the question that interested me. And this is what I think the answer to it is.
Beautiful. Very well done.
Exactly.
Very well done. So I hope you understood कि किसी और से कोई क्वेश्चन पूछा भी उस टाइम पे आप सो नहीं रहे हैं जूम कॉल पे, आप ध्यान से सुन रहे हैं. उस बच्चे ने नहीं आंसर करा, आपको आता है. जब आपका इंटरव्यू खत्म होने वाला है, पैनलिस्ट ने आपसे पूछा वुड यू लाइक टू ऐड एनीथिंग, यू इम्प्रेस देम बाय सेइंग कि सर आपने ये पूछा था, मुझे इसका आंसर आता है, इसका आंसर ये. वेरी ब्यूटीफुली डन, वेरी गुड. ऑलराइट, सो दैट्स, सो वी हैव ग्रुप इंटरव्यूज, फॉर्म फिलिंग एंड एसओपी. हाँ जी, प्लीज गो ऑन.
Similarly, like, and this is something that I did voluntarily, but at times you can also be passed the question on directly. For example, someone was asked about a company that the third person was working in.
Achha.
And you can't really stop that.
Oh.
So in that sense, it's really important to be attentive. This second, and this is an elimination round. Okay. So largely after your technical background check, if you're good with whatever you filled out technically, then you proceed to the GI2, which is a more personality-based round. So in that round, we didn't really have anything academic, no HR, nothing. Three people, different people, and 2 panelists. The questions mostly revolve around your personality.
Okay.
So in some interviews, what you say in your SOPs will come up. But for example, in my interview, there was no question on anyone's else. Because both of our professors sort of like travel.
Okay.
Their questions were as open-ended as, if you meet us at an airport, how would you introduce us?
Okay, nice.
What would you say? If you had to recommend a travel destination to us, what is your recommendation? And then, so this is a common trait across all interviews, that whatever they pick, you will have to talk based on that. Similarly, for me, one of the current discussions that we had in that interview, which should women get menstrual leaves in corporate workspace.
What did you say?
In that. I thought I'd give a balanced answer because that was my genuine view also, that you need to give out these leaves because women go through a lot, but you also need to make sure that they feel comfortable accessing it.
Huh.
Which means you need to tell them that this is important. You need to make sure that they know that such leaves will exist for them where it's relevant. For example, paternity leaves have come in now.
Huh.
So in that respect, it needs to be accessible even if it's available.
Yeah.
So that is my view on it. Because obviously someone has said before कि हाँ होनी चाहिए.
हाँ, ये तो मतलब सभी बोलेंगे, कोई ये नहीं बोलेगा नहीं होनी चाहिए. But बात ये है कि this is a very common discussion. People ask this, I also get asked all the time. My view is that it should be accessible, it should be given. We should also have the opportunity of not using it. So there are a lot of women who don't need it, but there are a lot of women who desperately need it. So we need to be able to make our employees comfortable enough, and we need to also check that it's not being misused. So there's a lot to it. You can't just give like छोटा आंसर हाँ होनी चाहिए. थोड़ा नॉलेज काम आता है, थोड़ा ओपन माइंडेडनेस यहाँ काम आती है. तो आप एक बैलेंस पर्सपेक्टिव टेबल पे ला पाते हैं.
I feel like what you prep can always find its way. For example, for me, I read about an SBI chairwoman who sort of included one of these leaves as part of the policy when she comes. So for me, I mentioned that also. That this is an experience that I remember.
Absolutely. डेटा आप जब भी आप जो आर्टिकल्स पढ़ते हैं आजकल, जो न्यूज़ पढ़ते हैं, उसको भी आपको आपके इंटरव्यू में आप शो ऑफ कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि आप जितना डेटा, एग्जांपल्स, रियल लाइफ चीज़ें बोलेंगे, उससे पता चलता है दैट डूड यू आर अपडेटेड, यू आर नॉट जस्ट गिविंग योर ओपिनियन, बिकॉज ओपिनियन अल्टीमेट इज द लास्ट थिंग दैट पीपल वांट टू नो. सबका ओपिनियन है. आप इज योर ओपिनियन बैक्ड बाय प्रीमाइसेस इज व्हाट विल काउंट. Good enough. I think we should wind up our discussion by you telling everybody 3 mistakes that they should avoid and any tips that you would want to give to anyone and everyone.
Okay, I think it will come from my interview only. 3 mistakes that I think everyone should definitely avoid. You can spend your time on Unacademy trying to find an educator, but don't sort of switch in between. तो ऐसा मत करना कि जनवरी से मई तक you follow one educator and then in May suddenly you decide that this person is not it, I'm going to a different educator.
Okay.
Spend your time finding one, then stick to it. Second mistake is it's very easy to get demotivated. I think someone's doubt in the chat is also, did you have self-doubt? How do you deal with it? Self-doubt. Self-doubt is part of this journey entirely. This is what was happening CAT ke pehle also, right? When I gave my slot, I was still thinking, should I see slot 1 analysis? Should I not? So self-doubt will keep going until you give the actual exam, get done with it, give the interview, chalta rahega. You have to just find a way to step out of it when needed. So you will find a lot of chances to get demotivated. Don't let it fool your entire. That's one of the mistakes that I feel like come up regularly. The third thing, and this is what I said before, don't be egoistic about anything. There's nothing that you know for sure. There's no type of question that you can solve for sure. It takes one day for an educator to give you one question or a topic you desperately like that you don't know. Yeah. So in that sense, you have to be very humble about it, that you've done everything that you can, and that's what will help you. But there's nothing that you can claim expertise in yet. So I feel like that ego shouldn't come in anywhere. But I feel like a necessity tip is very consistency is very important. The day that you stop prepping, it hurts your chances. So you can obviously take breaks, but make sure that these breaks are defined. The second thing is focusing on negatives has always been the key. जो गलत है उसको सही कर लो, जो नहीं आता है वो पढ़ लो. It's very important to focus on the positives. Today I gave a sectional where I could finish my target. Today I gave a mock where I scored high. Today I filled out an application by myself. All of these are positives that you need to remember. Third thing is don't skip on your profile. Don't just focus on one exam. Make sure you give all exams, open up your chances. Make sure that your profile has something that will make you talk. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए that you run out of things to talk in an interview, no matter which. So these are 3 things that I feel like should really be focused on throughout the journey.
Cool enough. I'll just quickly give you a recap, everyone. So the mistakes that she wants you to avoid is switching educators from time to time. She wants you to do all your window shopping in the beginning and then stick to one educator per section. Yes, there will be times when you will doubt yourself, and that self-doubt, those butterflies in your stomach will stay till the end. In fact, I must tell you from experience, I'm still in touch with 2021 students, most of them, at least the ones who love me. अभी रिजल्ट्स नहीं आए हैं, सारे राउंड्स खत्म हो गए, तब भी बेचारों के पेट में तितलियां हैं. तो वो तितलियां रहेंगी तब तक जब तक तुमको फाइनल बुलावा नहीं आ जाता. इनफैक्ट जब तुम कॉलेज में घुस रहे होगे तब भी तितलियां ही होगी. ठीक है, तो तितलियों का साथ ना छोड़ें, पढ़ते रहें डिस्पाइट द बटरफ्लाइज. Third, don't get arrogant or egoistic about anything. So even if you've done some section or some chapter thoroughly, don't be of the point of view कि मुझे अभी सब आता है, मेरे को अभी कोई defeat नहीं कर सकता, because you don't know the kind of questions that will be thrown at you. The tips that she has is be consistent, take breaks, but please make sure that those breaks are defined. Then whenever you are not scoring well, you are doing questions that are wrong, not able to figure out things, please convert those negatives into positives. And when you do something positive, when you tick off the items off your to-do list, when you do well in a sectional test or a class test, celebrate your wins. That will keep your motivation level high. Do not obsess over one exam or one section or one kind of question. Also, do not be obsessed with the idea of just CAT, and keep working on your profile and have a life beyond this. Good. Cool enough. Anything else that you would like to add, Vibha, before we call it a day?
I think we've covered everything.
All right.
Thank you so much for this.
So I think I don't see any major questions also, because we've answered all the questions. So I hope that the discussion that we had with Vibha today is has been fruitful to all of you, and it has helped you get more clarity and a better perspective on how you need to think and behave as an aspirant. Okay, and I am sure it's always good to know from a peer, from somebody from the peer group, rather than always listening to it from the educators. Next Friday and next Friday, so 2 more Fridays coming up, I'm doing 2 more interviews with people who made it to Symbiosis and Narsi Munji Mumbai. So I'm very glad that we have this opportunity of talking to people from various colleges, and these guys have been with you and with us on Unacademy, and they will tell you the real picture. So please stay with me throughout this series, even if it at some point feels like the questions are same, because I assure you that even if the questions are the same, the answer from every candidate differs, and you will be able to see कि आप किस candidate से कौन सा बच्चा ज़्यादा relate कर पाता है. I would like to thank you, Vibha, and I would also like to congratulate you for what you achieved. I'm so happy for you that you cracked it, and may you stay the warm, bubbly, beautiful person that you are. And I wish you all the luck from me and also from my new bachas. I hope you have a blast, and maybe we can catch up with you once again once you are at college, and तब तुम हमें 6 महीने 8 महीने बाद बता सकती हो कि तुम्हारा जर्नी कैसा जा रहा है.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Means the world to me. I've also been looking at that. This is really nice. Thanks everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to this session. This has been a wonderful time. I missed you, and I'll keep coming back if I can. Thank you.